this all together, and we have just taken his lead. So thank you so much, and thank you to Mr. Koshy, right? So as I said in the intro and the event, kind of call out, I think ONDC is the big thing. It's not even the next big thing, right? Everyone's talking about it. We had a recent article on Time. Everybody, right, across India, across the world, talking about ONDC, and we are at a stage where everybody's looking at India, and it's probably the UPI moment for Indian e-commerce. And for us at IIMBA and IIMB, I think that one of our own is actually the helm of affairs, is something to be very proud of. And I think it's going to be a delight to hear from him firsthand, right, from the horse's mouth, on what exactly ONDC is and what are the opportunities that lie ahead, right? And to formally kickstart this event, I now invite our chapter president, CP Madhusudan, to deliver the welcome address.
Hey, thanks, Sarwan. But actually, now you said everything that I wanted to say. Now I don't know. I think I'll have to steal your introduction and introduce Koshy. Hey, yeah, Koshy, welcome to the Chennai chapter. Great to have you with us today to speak about ONDC. I don't understand anything of e-commerce, but I've been seeing ONDC all over media, and it is wonderful to note that one of our own is heading it, as Sarwan has aptly put it. Special shout out to Arvind for bringing you in to speak to us today, and cap in the feather of the Chennai chapter to have brought you on board, right? Because the Delhi, we have lifted you from the Delhi chapter and brought you to talk to us. I hope there are some Delhi people as well here. I guess they will be joining us. We have Sukumar all the way from Mysore. Special shout out to him from one of our senior most batches from the 77 batch. Welcome to others from all over the country, and I'll leave you in the capable hands of Sarwan and Marwan, who are our dynamic young deputy directors. Okay, gents, over to you.
Thanks, Madhu. So yeah, the format is going to be very simple. So we'll have Mr. Koshy talking to us about ONDC and the opportunities and giving us an overview for probably 20 minutes or so. And then we have Q&A, right? So a lot of you have sent in questions while registering, and some of you may have questions which you can type out in the chat box. And towards the end, we'll kind of try to get as many questions as possible. And yeah, at the end of it, I think we'll walk out with a better understanding of ONDC and also into Mr. Koshy's job, right? And what lies ahead. So once again, sir, pleasure having you, and the floor is all yours. We look forward to hearing from you.
One last shout out to Harish Mittal, our Lord and Master. Hey, Harish, welcome.
Hey guys, hey, hi Madhu, hi, hello everybody. Yeah. Sorry, I'm in a little remote location with low signals, so I might be in and out.
So Harish is our president of the Alum chapter, so he rules us all.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Harish. Over to you, Mr. Koshy.
Thanks, guys. It's really a pleasure to be among the brethren, and I couldn't in no way sort of postpone, because what had happened was suddenly my wife had to have a surgery day for yesterday night, and then so I was like a dutiful husband, was sitting with her till an hour back. And then I thought that it's not a good idea to even postpone the IIMB brethren meet, and also a stupid thing to try to do a webinar from a hospital room. So I came back home for an hour, and then there's no time constraints in that sense, and I'll go back. She's sort of fit and proper as of now, because these days the technology helps you all, microsurgeries and recovery fast and so on and so forth. So that way there is no concern, except that she'll feel this guy is like, ditching me all the time, but she's doing it again. Okay, that is just a lighter introduction. And then what I'll do is, like Arvind and Sarwan explained, I'll give a brief intro, ready to answer any question. If you want to have any sessions later, we'll do. I know that somebody like a very evolved crowd like our IIMB brethren will have a lot of doubts, clarifications, questions, debates, disagreements, and so on and so forth. And I know normally it wouldn't have lasted in such short period of time, because I've seen. One other thing is that what we are talking about in ONDC is a very, very fundamental shift in the way e-commerce is done, and our brains been conditioned in the last few years on a certain model, and all of us believe that's the only way any model can work. So our comparison is often with only in that model. So that sort of, and I've realized that when I'm talking to, all my, industry colleagues from even the e-commerce company, fintech companies, banks, financial institutions, IT companies, and so on and so forth, a lot of things are still a question mark because we have not thought through in that direction. And this happens in any transformational agenda. I remember reading in some nice old book that good old time when Mr. Tata introduced electricity in Bombay. He had to go and convince people that it's a fantastic source of energy compared to the steam energy that the factories are all used to. And he had to really go and market and convince people, because it was not just about switching out to a new energy source. It was also reorganizing their factory floor and because it was all meant for the horizontal transmission with the steam power. And now the opportunities are different. The factory layout could be different, and it was sort of difficult to think through. And after having left about almost 30 years now, or 32 years, in IIMB, and I had the opportunity to work in a couple of transformational agendas, and be a sort of silent partner in many of them and playing an interesting role. And I've seen this happening, so it's nothing unique about it. It's happening not just, our brethren around, but around brethren all around the world. My first attempt to total transformation was in 1996. When I was part of the startup team which set up what we call the DMAT, dematerialized holding and trading of shares, which was like a completely, those days I thought it was complete madness to attempt something like that here in India. But today, looking back, it looks like, the most obvious thing to do. So this is, again, the similar kind of moment. So it's really exciting. So what I'll do is I'll put a little, before I go into specifically in ONDC, I'll put a little context, and then I will go a little deeper and later into any questions. Is my voice sort of clear? I am, my net I thought was a little.
Yeah, but perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So fine. If you remember, and some of us are old enough with enough gray hair like me and Venki, of the time when, internet sort of started. Internet in the sense TCP/IP enable wide area network computers across continents to connect to each other. But that time it was also a domain of geeks, who could sort of think about bulletin boards and gopher and so on and so forth, and not ordinary human beings like us could ever think about it. It was then that, Mr. Tim Berners-Lee came and said, let there be HTTP and let that be a public good. And let that be a foundational public good on which there, something called the World Wide Web could evolve. And that started the idea of internet as a very, very democratic place. So if you remember, still so, is that anybody can create a web page. Whether I create a web page or Venki create a web page, well, theoretically both has the same visibility. Of course, Google, when you do only search through Google, they have some special deals. If I pay more a little, probably they will push my search results a little upstairs. But there are, at the end of it, that is only the search algorithm by a particular entity. But that's not, but theoretically, everybody has the same discoverability. But what will really make the difference, so whether somebody wants to discover it and somebody will continue want to come there, depends upon what is the stuff that we can do. For example, if I and Venki has a web page each, more people will go to Venki's web page than to my web page, because the Venki makes something very, very amusing and exciting for people to come back again. Whereas mine is something so staid that nobody want to come back again. Even if you tell them, please discover, they'll say, sorry, there are better things to discover in life. Okay, so the idea is, but it is equal opportunity. There is nothing. It is not that I belong to a very particular club, and because of that, mine has a better visibility than Venki, who belong to a less sort of inferior club. Okay, so that is our idea. Supposing, imagine Tim Lee decided to sort of set up a platform and make it a private platform, with a proprietary technology, keeping it proprietary, not making it a public good. Probably today we have HTTP, tomorrow somebody would have created ATTP and CTTP, probably 2 or 3 large network, and each of us paying probably $50 each to access that. Would have been the situation. The world would have been very, very different if that's the way we go. But that is not. He said, let the foundational route for communication, be a public good. Let people build on top of it. Okay, so if you remember, internet started with the same spirit. Same was the case of even email. Initially, I don't know how many of you remember, there were very private, closed group of email providers. And I remember just soon after I passed out, qualified from IIMB, I had managed some Jugaad account from Earnet. That was like a very privilege to manage a Jugaad account in Earnet, and to access internet was like, some achievement those days. And later when there was a commercial offer available in India, I was one of the first to adopt that email service where I used to pay, I think, 1 or 2 rupees per download of a normal few bytes of few KB of internet and upload something like that. And my most shocking experience is that those days, me and our favorite Professor Indra Rajaraman published a paper together, which came in EPW, and I was very proud. And being my case, my name starts with K and her name surname starts with R. I was also excited when all the notings came as Koshy and Rajaram, while all the work was done by Rajaram. And then ma'am said, hey, let's try to send it to my friends in Cornell, where she did a PhD from. So I very proudly said, hey, I have an email account, let me try. So both of us sat down and tried to upload it. Sorry. To upload it. Why I said tried? Because we never succeeded. It never reached where it was intended to reach. How much do you think that I would have paid for that attempt to upload a 2 MB Word file to somebody in US? I can give your guess how much I would have ended up paying.
Around 3,000 rupees.
How much?
3,000 rupees in that time.
I just paid 20,000 rupees.
Oh.
So the whole idea is that when you have some limited exclusive clubs, that's what happens. Okay. So, but eventually when SMTP happened, everybody can have their own unique proprietary kind of email server and solution, but between them, they can all talk. So that is what made a big difference. But eventually when the digital commerce came up, it evolved in a slightly different fashion. Now, I suggest you guys read a book recently published by Nandan Nilekani called The Art of Bitfulness, which has got part 1, 2, and 3. Part 2 is all about digital technology and us, which you can anytime read, which is, but part 1 and 3 talks about this transformation and its impact. So I really liked that book recently, which I read, and I realized how contextually, philosophically it explains what I'm attempting to do as a practical guy. So I will recommend some of you to, all of you guys to.
Please repeat the name of the book.
It is called The Art of Bitfulness, available in Amazon. Art of Bitfulness.
Okay.
Okay. So if you really look at what is special about digital commerce, is that all of us are familiar. We have fantastic platforms, fantastic ones giving complete end-to-end service from all the building blocks of transaction, from buyer interface to logistics to warehousing to customer onboarding to customer interface and so on and so forth. Completely integrated solution, giving economies of scale, fantastic innovation within the platform and so on and so forth. There is nothing wrong in that idea, but one of the challenge, the only thing is that those 1 or 2 platforms that is there are using proprietary technology, which would mean that the network effect will help to feed on itself. So whoever is managing to get a large population of users first sort of practically end up being the leader, and the rest of the people, maybe 1 or 2 may succeed. The rest, what we call the winner takes it all model, nobody else can unseat them, because that network has its own proprietary model, and within that, the larger the volume of the users, the more market power that it has. So the very nature, independent of any action or inaction by the platform providers, it has a tendency to become very, very concentrated. So what the economists call it, contestability becomes a challenge, and when contestability becomes a challenge, the practices, the practices that they involve in also become a big challenge. And on a related thing, in fact, even when very often these kind of practices have been sort of pushed forward with saying that customer is the king, I should do everything for the customer. So what had happened, while it is a very, very laudable objective on which all of us should build our business, but it also, what happens is they become, collective buyer on behalf of all the customers. So essentially, giving them what you call the economics again called the monopsony power, not just the monopoly, they becomes like monopsony. So that significantly impacts the sellers, because in every trade there is buyer and seller, and there's the need to treat both the entities together. So this is, we are not saying the intention of any such entities. This is a natural progression it follows. So that's why if you have sort of noticed in US, Miss Lina Khan had been brought as a chairman of FTC, saying, is there a way to bring some more discipline among the digital marketplace? They've also bring about, I forgot the name of one or two regulations to address this issue through regulation. Okay, whereas the Chinese said, forget all this regulation, I'll just take control of it and I'll tell them what to do. So, and the Europeans are again, if you get a chance, you should read that. It's called the Digital Market Access Act or regulation, something like that, what the European Union is trying. Again, if you look at all of them are talking about the same challenges of contestability and possibility of unfair practices. Not that their innuendos are there is, but there could be. So that's a very nature. So what is a way to address this issue is a question. If you remember, these kind of questions happened in multiple industries long ago, not just in the digital technology, maybe 150 years ago, it was Standard Oil being broken down, then Bell Labs being broken down, all saying that, let there be more competition, the whole idea. So in India, we decided that instead of trying to use a regulatory sledgehammer and break it down to small pieces, can we think about technology, marketplace, and enabling policy? And is there a way to address? And that was where our first attempt in this direction was UPI, where we said, okay, let's try to bring this idea of, more an open market idea. That was an early attempt in our country. And I remember having in multiple discussion about 4 or 5 years ago, where a lot of people think, one is it's not possible, second, it didn't make sense. And if you let our existing industry to grow 7 to 8%, which is happening, we would recently reach the kind of achievement that we will need. So those days, I think that our maximum, the total transactions per month was about 250 million transactions, which I think is around 300 plus. Probably if you had let the normal way the market grows, it would have been maybe 350 million transactions. But when the UPI came and sort of changed the very rules of the game, today, I don't know how many of you are aware, last month, the total UPI transaction alone was 6.5 billion. So which was demonstrating a humongous transformation which is possible, by a new idea, an idea which is very, very different, not an incremental growth or an incremental changes in the existing model. And, having developed that confidence, when the pandemic hit, there was a small group of people from, with the support of Ministry of Commerce, said we should think about an idea like this, not as a short-term patchwork solution, think something which is transformational. So the same set of people who had been behind the thought, underlying thinking of UPI, UIDI, and so on and so forth, sort of expanded this idea and said that we can build what we call an open market for open network for digital commerce. And that was the beginning of the idea. And the same team said it should be built up by with the same flexibility and agility of a small private company, and said that we should go about setting up a company with the focus in that direction. But don't wait for the company to set up. Let us start as a project team and let the initial work be done. And parallelly, we could set up a company. So a project team started working on this idea and also setting up an independent company. And the independent company got set up on 31st December 2021 with monies, etc. coming in March and some more money to come in this month. So in the meantime, we have gone a lot forward. The pilot has been launched in 5 cities and we expect it to sort of grow, and maybe we will be able to dedicate to the country, to the nation probably by August. And that's again an ambitious target we're working. This independent company is set up as a Section 8 company. What it means, Section 8 means that there will be no dividends being distributed to the shareholders. And in spite of that, I am in the most privileged position of a startup with everybody falling head over heels to put some money on a company which will never give them a dividend, because they believe that what the foundation that it gets built will definitely make a significant transformation for their own business. So in that context, as of now, I have 20 entities who have committed resources, which include the large 5 private sector bank, large public sector bank, then BSC, NSC, CDSL, NSDL, NPCI, NABARD, SIDBI, and so on and so forth. And collectively, there is not a single direct investment by the government. The private entities together hold more than 50%. And you can say that PSU Bank on about 40-45%. In that sense, the ONDC is a private company with a public purpose. So it also gives us the flexibility and agility. And we are working truly like a startup company with a small project team, working with all kinds of people, including consultants, volunteers, sabbatical. We are really excited to have sabbatical people coming from companies like Google, Microsoft, Hindustan Unilever, and Nivea, and so on and so forth. So because we are able to harness significant amount of brain power to collectively come together and shape an idea which is just an imagination and a dream in many people's mind, and which has to take shape in the coming future. So what is this underlying structural change that initially attempted in UPI and being matured in UNDC and ONDC is the idea, only very 2 simple words: unbundling and interoperability. What is unbundling is about the building blocks of transaction. What are the building blocks of transaction? The seller interface, logistics, seller service, payment, buyer onboarding, buyer interface, delivery, warehousing, and so on and so forth. Today, it's being done by 1 or 2 entities in a completely integrated fashion using proprietary technology. Okay, but the moment you unbundle it, then your question of it, doesn't it get fragmented, affecting the service to the consumer, whether it is a seller or a buyer? So that is the idea of interoperability, creating everybody, bringing a common language for everybody to talk together. So the building blocks are like Lego blocks. Can be, anybody can create a Lego block as far as they follow the rules and standards of the Lego blocks, and anybody can connect them together, stitch them together to get seamless commerce, by themselves or with the other components coming from other entities. That is conceptually the simple model of ONDC. It looks very simple, but you need to think through and understand the impact it can make. So let me just take some few examples to sort of let us to think through a little more. Today, if you look at, there are a couple of large e-commerce companies, each of them may be claiming, somebody claiming 100 million users, somebody claiming 50 million users, which is what their market power is. Whereas if you look at the physical market, you have how many? More than a billion consumers there. All of them are available for anybody to go and sell to them. It is only a question of whether they want to buy. And similarly, whether whom as a seller you want to sell and whom as a buyer you want to buy. Not because you belong to a particular club or a group. Okay. But today, imagine, let's say I'm just using this as an example, say Airtel or Vodafone or Kotak Bank. They all have large digital consumers. Imagine they want to offer e-commerce experience as a part of complementary service to their the online services they offer. Today they cannot, because giving a customer interface is easy, but getting all the sellers being available to them is practically impossible and expensive and not within their expertise. So they have no option, so they just give up. Imagine that the seller all sellers are available to everybody. Suddenly the rule changes. So long as these platforms of Airtels and Kotak banks and HDFC Bank make their consumers exposed to this network using a protocol which is shared by everybody, suddenly you're creating a pool of consumers in the market. All are discoverable by any seller. So suddenly the lever of some entities of having large consumer bases goes, and everybody is bringing their consumers together into a pool, and each of them trying to do better than the other by the way they provide service to the buyer without being influenced by the additional commission the seller is paying. Their job is only how do I make Koshy's and Saravan's buying experience better, help him to make the best buying options from whatever that is available. Maybe bring an AI, ML, probably add credit to that. Say that, Koshy, you want to buy this mobile phone, I'll give you the credit. I don't need to tie up with another platform. Okay. These can, so suddenly the opportunities available for anybody. It could be a large, somebody like a telco who is bringing their 500 million customers onto the pool, or somebody creating a very, very, supposing Venki sitting in Tamil Nadu decides to create a very specialized buying platform for Tamilians, okay, who talks Tamil and who can make their searches in Tamil. So long as he makes that simple, small app at a very, very low cost and expose those consumers to the network by converting their voice commands or pictorial commands or Tamil text commands into the same protocol to throw it in the network. He has that's customers is discoverable for everybody, all the sellers, or those customers can discover. Then he will say that I'm going to create a culture. I mean, this is for my Tamilian friends. I am helping them the sorting and prioritizing all based on our cultural values and cultural priorities. And when the Pongal come, I'll do a special Pongal sale, helping them to identify all the goods and gifts which are relevant to Pongal for the Tamilians, nothing else for it. He has an equal business potential and equal, adoption or acceptance by the sellers, because they don't care where it is coming from, so long as the sell request is coming. Okay, so this is, and that is on the buyer side. Now look at the seller side, same issue. So it is no more the captive buyers which is the determining factor. It is the specialization and innovation of the seller platform, whether it is big or small. So you would see by design instead of the way the current marketplace encourages concentration, this model encourages innovation and specialization irrespective of the size, and still become a business, a model which is business-wise sustainable. That is the underlying spirit. Okay, so what ONDC is trying to do is to make this protocol, okay, and help everybody to become a part of the network by making this protocol available and helping people to test it, to make sure that their own applications, whichever way they have developed, is ONDC protocol compliant, and get their name in the registry. Like you have in internet, your DNS, here you will be a registry. And that the testing of their protocol and admittance onto the registry with some due diligence, make sure that it's not a flea market, but it's only people who are identified and who have a background, who have identified themselves will come into. So that is what ONDC does. In addition to that, ONDC does two more things. One is that since it's a closed community of people who have a collective interest, there are a set of rules of the community which will be made, propagated, made with the help of the community members for the, which is good for all of them, and enforced mostly digitally. Some of them has to be done non-digitally too, and ensure that everybody follows that rule as a discipline. It's like saying that we all decide to be a member of the club. Club has some rules and the rules have to be strictly adhered to. Third is ONDC does a set of common services which will improve the efficiency of the network or the trustworthiness of the network for the users, which are, if developed individually as a common infrastructure by ONDC, instead of being the proprietary solution by any independent party, it will be more relevant. So we created what we call the common things, which is, like I said, the registry, the testing suite, then a network-wide reputation index, an open data, which is not anybody's private information, but but whatever that you call the collective, with the anonymized information coming aggregated together, which will be shared with all the community members equally instead of trying to take monetary advantage as a central entity. Okay, and it will become a shared service in that sense, and also for the policy makers. Something like a common repository of catalogs which every seller and buyer application can use. Something like an open that an online dispute resolution framework and a platform which everybody can share and use to increase the trust the network has, the people has on the network. It is not that we are going beyond the legal framework. There's no legal framework exclusive of ONDC. The current legal framework will be applicable. However, we as a collective members are trying to resolve the issue so that we don't have to go to the court and get stuck there. Okay. So these are some of the common services that is being built in, and we will eventually build more such common facilities as a public utility with a business to be done only by the the industry, and not, we don't want to become like a monolith trying to garner everything into our fold, but rather behave like a utility which is giving the minimum common services that are relevant to be common, and so that people can build on it. That is what we are attempting, and it sort of getting, as somebody I think pointed out in the beginning, it is getting the the attention of the whole world, because it's a very, very unique proposition that we are attempting. We are not. Some people used to ask, "Hey, has it been done anywhere?" So I could very proudly say, "No, India is not just a copy-paste country. We can now have something original." And having a predecessor like ONDC, in UPI, and even COWIN. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the way the COWIN got implemented in India. As in terms of size and scale and functionality, it sort of matches the best or even better than the best in the other countries in such a short period of time. So that way, that's what we are attempting to do. I'm sure that there'll be a lot of questions. I think I've already spent my time of giving you a big picture. Happy to answer any questions in the next few minutes you guys want to sort of proceed with. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Koshy. That was really enlightening. And there have been a ton of questions that have come in while registering. I also request participants to kind of just share your question in the chat, and probably we can unmute you, and each of you could go in order. So
no,
firstly,
probably Saravanan or somebody, if you can sort of, there'll be some repetition. If you want to curate and just run through the one and answer, raise it to me. So in terms of, you can prioritize. So that may become.
Perfect. The first one is not a question, but I think it's very, something very special. And I think, as you said, coming to your brethren is very nice. And your batchmates, right? Especially, this one is from Venkat Iyer, right? Pandit. He says, hats off to Koshy and Joshi, right? And I hear that Mr. Joshi, Shishir Joshi also is part of this whole movement, and both of your classmates. So
yes, we used to hang out together as Koshy and Joshi, and now we are again hanging out together as Koshy and Joshi. And when I started this project, I didn't have anybody, and I didn't have a money to pay as like a true startup. I said, Joshi, sab band karke aaja, and he jumped in the fray.
Yeah. And before I go into ONDC per se, one thing, I saw your profile, you've been with different organizations, it's E&Y for over a decade, and then now you're here. How did this happen? Was it by chance? Was it by plan? Or was it destiny? What did you say? How did you land up here where you are?
If I tell you, my journey in this, if what I call today, I have termed this as digital solution to population scale problems, started in 1996. That was a long time ago. When I was like everybody else doing the regular stuff as any normal IIMB guys, I got introduced to a gentleman called CB Bhave, Chandrasekhar Bhaskar Bhave, who was then the ED of SEBI, who had left to set up something called NSDL and a part of the digital transformation of capital market. So I thought it's a cool idea. Somebody who had the balls to leave IAS and set up something like this would be a cool idea, although I had no clue what it was. I said, I'm there. So I became a part of his show, and that is how I got involved. And then, if I just loosely use the word, I got introduced to this mafia of people, just on a lighter vein, who think like this. So later, capital market, then we set up what we call tax information network. Then we set up central record keeping agency for pension. Then I was, all while I was in NSDL. And, I got introduced to Nandan Nilekani, who sort of pulled me in and said, Koshy, he seemed to have a lot of common interest, work out with me. Even before he became the UIDA chairman, I was his co-conspirators in shaping many of the ideas. One of them became eventually the UIDA. And there again, I was a resource person in the early stages. And it so happened that time I decided to quit NSDL after a long service and join EY as a consultant. There again, my focus had been only on these kind of, and I was not in a literally like a true blue blood consultant, rising up in the consulting career globally, but looking at my practice, focusing on these kind of things. So I was the engagement partner from EY for the UIDA project. That gave me a lot of credibility, UIDI, and the pension project which I did. I became so-called expert in ID and social protection, which sort of got me into the attention of the World Bank, and so I started working globally. Then I worked on something like what you call tax information network, analytics for income tax department, COVIN, even quite a number of such DGST and so on and so forth. So I had been a part of this playing active role or acting as a resource person all throughout. So when this project came, in fact, I was also involved in the same group of people who are trying to think about this idea of protocol. And when they decided to set this up a company, as you know, the advisory council consists of people like R.S. Sharma and Nandan Nilekani, etc., who have sort of, whom I have worked with. And they said, Koshy, come, it's time for you to do the next innings. So it was more like a natural progression in something that I was doing. Nothing outstanding in that way. It was just a natural segue. It so happened.
You may have left earnest and young, but you're still very earnest and very young. That's what I like to say.
We have to have the pundit touch. But yeah, as you say, connecting the dots, it all falls in place now. So I'll dive straight in. So I'll kind of, put two questions together, right? So Venkateshwaran from PGP15 has asked, are the big e-commerce players constructively engaging the design and development of ONDC? And we have one question from Santosh Godbole. What threats do you anticipate from established players? So what's the role that the established players are playing, both constructively and, the other way around?
So constructively in the sense, they are not there in the design and development. Okay. It is being done by this team who's doing, but they're actively in dialogue with us. And like I said, when I created this working group, we have people like from Microsoft and Google, etc., who sort of playing in my working group some value-added solution. And the existing e-commerce players still haven't that come. And there again, but they're actively in dialogue with us, and we expect them to join. Not because I think they will start seeing the financial sense to be there. If I just draw my parallel to an earlier experiment, as well as the possibility here. One is that, remember when the UPI was being done, the existing player, if I just give you two examples, two names of two big companies, one in public sector and other in private sector. One was private sector, the phone, our Paytm said, what the hell, my wallet is the best solution that our country needs. So there is no need for that. And SBI said, we are so large a bank, practically everybody banks with us, even we don't need anything like this. Today, both of them are the big followers. And this time when ONDC started, Vijay came and told Koshy, I want to be the first one to be there. I don't want to make the mistake. So in my pilot, he's the first buyer application. And so that way, I expect that everybody will come to realization one. Second thing is think like this, assuming that you are ABC platform, who have your own cohort of buyers and sellers. And think like a seller there. Okay. So now the seller, supposing these people are not coming, let's assume they have 100 million clients. Okay. So the seller will say that, okay, through that platform, I get 100 million. To the other, if I join anywhere else, I get another 500 million. So if they don't join, why should I be there? I can be there. So there is a natural incentive not to really be not just beholden to them, but supportive to them. So then it makes sense that they also form the party and make their party corner more exciting. So instead of trying to sort of make it exclusive, make it special. So I believe that would be the strategy anybody will follow. So I already see some biggies talking to us, although they may not love it, but I think that is a way they will realize to readjust, realign themselves to this. And probably I am again thinking aloud, this is pure speculation among brethren. is that if you read the press from anywhere in the world, there's a very serious concern, whether it is in Europe or in US, etc., almost trying to break the companies to smaller pieces. I would rather think that anybody who in their right senses will think that than breaking those into smaller pieces, making something like this might be a better solution, even for them. So I would expect them to sort of propagate this idea globally than to say that I will keep away from. These are all probably my wishful thinking, but I think a very strong possibility. That's all.
Yeah, thanks. Again, quite a few questions on this, so I'll put it together. So you're kind of dwelled into it in your talk, but so what kind of opportunities will ONDC create for Indian startups? There's also a question, specific focus on rural startups, the small and medium enterprises.
Oh, no, fantastic, boss. It is going to be a humongous opportunity. In fact, on July, I think 1st or 2nd, you see my our website, we have even announced a hackathon for rural tech. Along with NABARD and other innovation mission, we are running a hackathon for rural tech. Because like I said, it is no more the captive audience that matters, but your innovation and specialization. So if you are able to develop a very specialized platform or an app for a very specialized set of industry segment, okay, that will attract a lot more customers than otherwise. But it will still be, because the cost is not so high, you can add a lot more other complementary services which are relevant to that segment. Imagine somebody want to create a special portal for people who create Kanchipuram silk. Somebody who understands the Kanchipuram silk market from the raw material to finished goods to marketing. They can have a lot of value in the portal. Today, one thing they cannot do is give them a market. Whereas now, the entry of the idea is from the market. Say, I can give you more access to a 1 billion customer base, so long as they want to look at you. But I can also give you a lot of additional value-added services to make your production more efficient, your marketing more smart. So that's why I believe that this is going to be humongous opportunity. That's why we are focusing very much on startups. Say that, they will have the enthusiasm, excitement, and the rigor to come something really cool without the overhang of anything that they built up.
Yeah. So next question is from Venkateshwarlu Taluri of PGDM 2014. ONDC eliminates most of the competitive advantage like large seller base, large entitlement, etc. that current e-com players have. How can ONDC ensure quality of service, or is it left to the market?
The answer is both. Let's try to understand. Like let's go to our class on strategic management. What we all done. Look, I would like to address it in 3 ways. Look at the physical market today. Okay, anybody can be there, and so long as what they offer is good, there will be attractiveness. Correct.
Yep.
If you look at today, what we are familiar is a 5-star market. In 5-star hotel, I'm sure that all of us can afford to go to a 5-star hotel and have a coffee, paying maybe 250 to 500 rupees. And there, if you raise your eyebrow, he'll come and change the coffee for you. Whereas you go to the coffee shop on the roadside, he'll say, "Saab, chahiye to le lo, nahi to chalo 50 rupees mein kha raha tu pee raha, chal." What does it mean? It means that there should be the appropriate matching of the buyer and seller based on what they want as product and service. And everybody should coexist. Okay. And only thing, it should not be a flea market where somebody comes and sells something and under. So if I just example, how do the existing marketplaces ensure certain kind of thing? So what they do is they have the buyer side and the seller side. So they will do anything to keep the buyer happy because that's a lever. And they'll tell the sellers that you pay me some extra, so I'll push your product. That's a separate issue. But finally, after having come to this equilibrium between the buyer and seller, let's assume that the buyer, you as a buyer, go and then order a good, which you didn't like it for genuine reason, or just you're trying to act smart, say that I want to get returned. No questions, and I'll give it to you because you are my very privileged guy. When you give it back, and when I pay you back, how am I able to pay back? I don't give the money back from my father's money. Because I have hold of the seller's money with me. And finally the seller pays. It is not an intermediary that pays. So that gives the market, give them the control. And if one seller dies, the other guy comes. That's no issue.
Yep.
I mean, this has been the the model used by large malls like Carrefour, etc. long ago, nothing new. Even if I run the shop, I will do the same thing. Okay. So that will still continue. For example, let's say that Saravanan may set up a buyer application which is exclusive. Say that there he will help only those exclusive buyers with a guarantee that I will, no questions asked, I will give it back. So when Saravanan broadcasts his intent to buy from his customers, his intent will say that I will pay the money only after 30 days when a customer has come back and said it's okay. And the sellers, here the advantage is sellers have an option. Sellers say that I don't like this business, so I don't want this business. Some sellers say wine is so good, I am willing to take the risk. There could be somebody else, a seller platform says that I am running a discount market. Chahiye to le lo, no returns. All of them will coexist. There will be different buyer-seller combination coexisting. Okay, that is one dimension. So the first dimension is how the appropriate buyer and seller come together at a condition which is acceptable to both and live with it both. And agree on this through a digitally signed contract. Second thing is what the very model forces them to behave, forces the behavior on them. What does a model force the behavior? Like now think like a buyer's application. Think like you are the Airtel who's only giving the buyer. Your only customer is the buyers. You will go out of the way to make his buying experience better and also technically follow up with the sellers who is screwing it up and create a big ruckus about it. Okay, he will take that extra effort to do that to the extent possible. Okay, so the same is the case. Think like you are a seller application for our Kanjipuram silks. You have no captive buyers. Your only claim to fame is such a good service that you provide. Any questions, you will sort it out if it's genuine question. Only then you will be accept the buyer application. The buyers will buy because there's no captive seller. You are not you are not the only Kanjipuram producer who is there in the platform. There are many. So you have a natural incentive to behave better. Adding on to that, some of the good discipline that third dimension is the ONDC will bring. One is only people who are brought into the market are brought in only after some due diligence. Second thing, their applications are tested for compliance to the protocol. Protocol is also include what we call the network policies of how they have to behave within the market, including they have to give the details of who is the grievance officer, how to take up a grievance, and so on and so forth. How to come. So, okay. Third thing is that we will continuously publish the grievance handling and dispute resolution mechanism of every entities as a public information. So there's a certain amount of naming and shaming as a public information and crediting as a public information. Fourth is that we will also create what I called earlier is a network-wide reputation, which is, where irrespective of which platform you are, your reputation will follow good or bad. Okay. So and then I said the ODR and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of common extra disciplining mechanism that we will implement as against the physical market today. And also being digital, it will become a little more possible to do this. So it is in no way guarantees, but improve the possibility of good behavior by this checks and balances, by the very nature of the business whom the buyer and seller are matching, and the very incentive structure of the marketplace itself. These three dimensions together would eventually bring about better behavior in the market. Is the construct on which you are working.
Sure. So the next question is from Sakshi Agarwal, EPGP 2017. Given this initiative involves many players and the intention is also to bring many offline businesses online, what would be your approach to monetize this initiative?
Like I said, ours is a Section 8 company. We only need the money to run our company and to do all this investment. We have no dividends to be given. And our intention of all this market power is to empower the market players and to bring about good regulatory framework and not to monetize and give dividend to anybody or improve the valuation.
Cool. So next one is from Hemant from the 2019 batch. He says, as per my understanding, this is more of a decentralized marketplace connecting all the dots through APIs. Who's going to verify the credibility of all the stakeholders and control the fraud in this marketplace, which is a big blocker for the commerce adaptability? In this vision of yours, any milestone for ONDC moving towards Web 3.0?
Okay, so two first things I think I answered.
Yeah, you answered that. Yeah.
Second thing is, what do I mean by Web 3.0? That itself is a very fluid idea. I'm sure that our friend there meant because this is more popular thing of, the distributed ledger. That's not just a Web 3.0. Web 3.0 is about decentralized market, which it is. But some may, in very limited things, say that Web 3.0 is all about blockchain. It is not. Go and read up a little bit, you'll realize. But anyway, we don't think that in a marketplace like this, in such a diversified marketplace, we are at the blockchain technology is not that mature and cost effective for everybody to participate. Whereas I am a complete believer of the blockchain, and I believe that eventually it will add strength. So in some components like the like the reputation index, we are trying to attempt this. The reason I'm saying is, to be very honest, like I said, before this avatar, I was a consultant. I've also established a couple of pilots, and I worked with a large number of companies who are attempting to do the DLT. What I have found is, in majority of the cases, they have no idea why they are doing it, except somebody in the board said it's a great idea to look at it. So they pilot karke dekh lo. So they had no definite reason why it is still the right model for them. Of course, there are places where it is really applicable. But so when that kind of maturity comes, this will also mature. In the meantime, we are not waiting for it, or we are not going to just dump into it and exclude a large number of market players. So that's our current strategy. So our approach is, we are always willing to look at the most appropriate smart tools. If you look at that way, the model itself is something really unique. Okay, even in the world standard. So we'll continue with the spirit of being unique and a pioneer, so long as it makes sense.
Yeah. Next one is from Anshuman from the 1997 batch. Will the platform be vernacular, as in the presence of local languages?
There is no platform, it's a network. Like I said earlier, Bengi can set up his Tamil buyer side or the seller side application, still will be a part of the network. That's why in our mind, we have to get out of the mental model of a platform and say this is a network, and think how the network will behave, how it will enable flexibility of each network. So imagine, like, for example, Google's front end for email is very different from Microsoft and very different from the ey.com. But they all talk to each other.
Yeah. Super. So Jagdish Sunkad says, I wish to run some pilots for agriculture input businesses for rural India. Have some ideas. Where should I begin?
First of all, I said you can send a mail to team@ondc.org and see whether you want to do that, or even participate in hackathon. Our website is ondc.org. My suggestion would be participate in this hackathon, which is just 2 weeks, 3 weeks away from now. That will also bring you along with a large number of people with similar ideas to sort of collaborate maybe.
Super. We'll have a couple of more questions.
Sure, sir. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. One is, it was recently implemented in 6 Indian cities, the pilot. How was it rolled out and how is it going? Any updates on that?
I said, now we see at the end of it, this is a network. It's not like a stock exchange establishing a stock trading platform or a bank platform where 80% of the control is with the central authority. Here, 20% of the control is the central authority, 80% is the network players. So when we wanted to really understand how the network players adopt, which can be done not in the lab testing, but in the real life testing. So what we did is we brought one buyer platform, 5 seller platform, and one logistics platform who are much ahead than the others, to come together and run a transaction among entities and people by invitation, friends and relatives, we call them. So, so we did, and we also wanted to see what's the kind of challenges because of the geographical dispersion. So we did that in Delhi, Bangalore, Bhopal, Shillong, and Coimbatore. So we are trying to work out variety of transaction, and it is happening smoothly. Even in fact, yesterday, without telling that I am from ONDC, I just put in, because I am a whitelisted user. So they know that I am a privileged person, but not necessarily the person of ONDC. Did an order and to deliver it to one of my friends in Delhi. It happened. So, but we also learned a lot of challenges. Specifically, a lot of challenges come from getting these sellers, get their catalogs digitized and make it available, and then the ONDC protocol. So there's a lot of learning and training that is needed. But what we plan to do is in the next 2-3 months, we plan to expand the users in terms of geographical spend as well as the wide reach that we will give it to different set of people. And so that's how we plan to scale up. And probably by end of the year, you will see by August, September, we'll see at least 100 cities, and by end of the year, a sort of national presence. And I believe, to be very honest, having gone through this experiments a couple of times, the adoption will happen initially in the slow and steady motion. And I believe it will take about 2 years for the hockey stick bend to take place. And that is, we have to have the persistence. I always say, since you said it is there in the news all the time, I've gone through it a couple of times. So in the first 6 months to 1 year, it's all about honeymoon. Everybody says, what a great guy this is, or what a great guy girl this is. After that, sort of what a fucked up marriage this is for the next 1 year. And then they will eventually, when they have a baby together, then they will say, they will learn to say, not bad, it works. Okay. Yeah. So I know I have to go through all these phases. At this point of time, I'm enjoying the honeymoon, which I know will not last so long. But I also know that the next period also won't last so long, and we will come because we will come out successful, because the very model, when I get and at least all the people who think are agreeing with it. If I give you three reasons why I get a lot of confidence, other than the inherent self-confidence Joshi and Koshy has. One is all the people want to put in money to be a part of this company. Okay, although they are not going to get any return. So it could be a foolish intent to be a part of the so-called national fad, or they believe that whatever that is being built up can, if successful, can give a lot of potential for them. Even when I make the presentation to all those boards, that's the kind of response I got from the so-called smart senior leadership of the particularly 20 entities. Now they are Indian. At least there are 3-4 other multinational companies who come and say, "Paisa humse kab le lega?" मैंने बोला अभी नहीं. Second is, like I said, the second is the VC community unicorns to come out than from the earlier paradigm, when they thought that this is going to kill unicorns, and they realized initially there was some resistance. Now they realize it's different. So IVC has done at least 2 sessions with me. Practically all large VCs and fund managers have had private sessions with me and my team, because they believe that this is giving them more opportunity. Third is that a lot of people coming and integrating. As of now, about 90 companies are integrating with us, 90 or 100 companies. Some will take 2 months, some will take 6 months. So if so many smart people are agreeing together onto this idea, I think I'm sitting on something good. That's the something that further bolsters my confidence.
Awesome, sir. So, wishing you and the team the very best. I think one thing for sure, while the honeymoon period may be over, we'll want to have you back after 1 year and probably after 2 years, and I think it's going to be a very interesting journey, and we would love to hear from you. And probably we'll also have you at a physical event, right? That would be great. And in fact, I didn't want to take too much time. In fact, before Mervyn formally delivers the vote of thanks, firstly, thank you so much, despite your wife being in hospital, for having taken the time off. So please convey our wishes for her speedy recovery, and a big thank you from our behalf for having allowed you to come and address us. So it's been an absolute pleasure, and I think it's kind of given us a deep insight into ONDC. And again, as I said, that one of our own is handling it. It's a matter of great pride, right? So we can keep, when we go around, we can always say that
2 of your own.
Yeah, 2, absolutely 2. And 2, plus I think there are a lot of these motivators like Venkat the Pandit, Arvind sir, and all that, everybody behind. And I think the entire IIMB, I think India is behind you, right? So in that sense, so we can, with our flag held high, head held high, we can say that they are one of our own. So yep, thank you so much. I'd invite Mervyn now to formally deliver the vote of thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Arvind. So anyway, good evening to all our participants. It's been a wonderful event. We had, I think, more than 40 participants throughout the event. So on behalf of IIMBAA Bangalore Alumni Association Chennai chapter, we thank our very own alum, Mr. Koshy, for taking the time. And we also wish your wife a very speedy recovery at this time. Thanks to Mr. Arvind Santanam, our staunch supporter, for getting this event organized, to Sarvan for putting things together and making all of it happen for us. It is indeed, I would say, as you mentioned, a Tim Berners-Lee for Indian movement for Indian e-commerce. You taught us a lot about, I learned personally about unbundling and interoperability and a lot of things. So we take back a lot of things and a lot more to read on. So we wish you and the team the very best, and we are behind you to make this the next biggest thing. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for all the participants, and we will keep hosting such events in a timely basis. So do join us, and it will be a good learning experience for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much.